Today, Great.com talks with Dan Carmody, who is the president of Eastern Market. And if you haven't heard of them, they are a non-profit on a mission to nourish a healthier, wealthier, and happier Detroit. If you are new here, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because today we learn the importance of making fresh food more accessible to the people of Detroit. Hello, Dan, and how are you? Welcome to our podcast.
Ryan, it's great to be here, and I'm doing well today. How are you?
I'm very well, Dan. Thank you. And I'm very excited to learn, obviously, more about the Eastern Market. So for me personally, and for anybody new here, what is the Eastern Market and what do you guys do?
Eastern Market's a 130-year-old public market right in the heart of Detroit. Obviously, we go back before there was a Henry Ford, before there were the Temptations and the Supremes, before there were Eminem, and before there was Kid Rock. So it's an old institution in Detroit that serves the rich diversity of Michigan agriculture. And we try to connect growers from the region, which we serve. That includes most of Michigan, Southeast Ontario, when we're not under heavy quarantine from COVID-19, and Northeast Ohio as well. So it's a big farm shed that we serve, and we try to connect the best available locally produced crops to Southeast Michigan residents. Wow,
that's incredible. And it's so nice to hear that you keep it all sort of local produce as well. So could you...
I don't want to get too religious on that term. We favor local, but, the season is short in Michigan. And so for us, to get people eating healthier, it's a three kind of concentric ring approach. First, we don't care where they're grown or how they're grown. People need to eat more fruits and vegetables. Secondly, we favor locally grown vegetables. And then when we get down, hopefully 20 years from now, we're all eating local vegetables that are organically grown. But, in the meantime, I'd rather have a California avocado than no avocado at all. So.
Yeah, no, I love that, Dan. I love that way of putting it. So, thank you for sharing that with us. And maybe could you just explain why you personally think this is important, Dan?
Well, we know that type 2 diabetes rates and other diet-related diseases are almost epidemic proportions in many of the lower-income communities in Detroit, where, as a national policy, we've subsidized a lot carbohydrates and not so much fresh fruits and vegetables. And so there are many parts of Detroit that are fairly low density, and they can't support a full line grocery store. So it's really easy to support. It's really easy to find all the things you shouldn't eat on a regular basis, and sometimes difficult to find nutrient dense food like fruits and vegetables. And so we over the course of the last 15 years have intervened where we can. We see it as a three-legged stool. Sometimes we got to work to increase the access to make it easier for people to find fruits and vegetables. Secondly, we sometimes have to do what we can to reduce the cost to low-income households. So there's different forms of government support, but there's also a lot of nonprofit support that we have brought to bear to help cut the effective cost of fruits and vegetables. And then lastly, over the course of the last 2 or 3 generations, some of the kitchen skills that many households used to have with what to do with a fresh fruit or vegetable has disappeared. We do a lot of education and outreach around giving people the confidence in their kitchen skills to be able to take an eggplant. What do you call an egg? You don't call it an eggplant in the UK, do you?
I don't know what they call it.
Aubergine.
Aubergine. That's it, right?
Yeah. One of those cute little. Which English are you talking? American or English? I used to joke, and some of the presentations I did, someone would know which end of that vegetable to hold until a question went up in the audience and someone asked, well, what end do you hold? And then I quit using that story. Anyway, we try to give people the confidence to be able to use those vegetables and fruits in a manner that will improve the health of their household. And so that was all actually magnified greatly by, Detroit's early experience a year ago with the high mortality rate from coronavirus infections. And so, there's a strong comorbidity between diabetes death from COVID-19. And we have seen at the market a remarkable increase in the use of those available incentives to eat better. And seemingly some of our local growers had, in what was the midst of an economic chaos, had their best years ever. So people actually seem to get the memo that taking care of their bodies and building their immune system through eating more nutrient-dense food really pays dividends.
And yes, it does, because they say your health is your wealth, right, Dan? So yeah, no, I'm glad that people can see that. And obviously, you speaking about COVID situation there leads me on to my next question: is like, what have been the greatest struggles, especially most recently with COVID, and in which ways did you need to pivot in order to continue serving the people of Detroit?
Well, first of all, pandemic pivots are nothing new for us at Eastern Market. We were here during the Spanish influenza in 1819 and 1818. Unfortunately, none of the records of what they did to pivot at that time are available to us. So, but public markets do persist, and we are an essential. We sell essential products, and we never closed the public market, but we reinvented the way we did business. Obviously, encouraging a lot of social distancing early on. We never before had a curbside pickup program, so Saturday market customers could pre-order and didn't have to get out of their car. Someone would put the box of food in their truck. And then when it came to a lot of our outreach programs, instead of setting up sort of pop-up sites throughout Detroit, which is our sort of main access program during the Michigan growing season, we actually took food to nonprofit partners in box form, and they distributed to vulnerable households from a variety of places throughout Detroit. So at our peak last summer, we were packing 3,000 food boxes a week after not having a box program at all to speak of as of May 1st last year. So we had to pivot quickly. We actually have a lot of surrounding the market is a rich local food district with a lot of food processors and distributors, many of whom serve bars and restaurants and hotels and institutions that were suddenly closed. So we work with them to devise some methods to help them out of cash flow crisis. Some of them produce houses sitting on $700,000-$800,000 worth of fresh vegetables that they didn't find a home quickly, weren't going to find a home other than the landfill. And we actually devised a drive-through Tuesday market where we encouraged neighbors to come buy for the other neighbors in case lots. And we had people buying 3 or 4 cases of product and sharing it with their neighbors, and had traffic backed up for about 6 blocks at one point. Fortunately, that food kind of gets redirected, and we only had to do that for a short period of time, but it was effective at its time. And, the operation of the market, we're a transient market in that if we're not a common garden with permanent vendors, we're a big hall where people come, they set up, they sell, they tear down, they leave. And we have, we're one of the largest of that kind in the world. We have 160,000 square feet. We have 5 different buildings. And, we had to space our vendors out more than we like to. So our own revenue is down by about half. The revenue we earned from distributing all these boxes helped replace some of that lost revenue from market operations. But it was a struggle. We had to cut some costs, and we got through. It was some lean times. Revenues were down, but expenses were down about the same amount. So for us, each year is a struggle to get to zero, and we were just about as successful last year as we've been. So,
yeah, Dan, thank you again for sharing that with us. And I loved how you said that, say, for instance, obviously income or revenue was down, obviously, due to COVID, but where you did make that slight pivot there with sending the boxes out, you managed to sort of bring it up.
Offset.
Yeah, offset it, yeah. So that's really great to hear, because one of my questions would have been sort of like, what positive did you take from that situation? So I think that's almost answered my question there anyway. If you got another answer to that, Dan.
I think we tried to keep our customer safety paramount, and so going to the market, and again, three of our five structures are sort of just covered; they're not enclosed, and then the other 2, and the weather's nice, we have doors that open up on all 4 sides, so people felt safer coming to a market than they did maybe going to an enclosed grocery store. And so, we try to make people feel safe. In the United States, I don't know how it is in the UK, wearing a mask is sometimes a political statement. And up until last week, we were riding like 98.5% compliance with mask mandates. And then the CDC last week on Thursday announced that you didn't have to wear a mask if you were vaccinated. And unforced error, I guess, on the part of the CDC. I'm not sure they should have quite announced it as they did. So we're kind of dealing with a new reality where some people think the pandemic is behind us and others aren't so sure. And we'll just have to see. Uncertainty got all of us are a little more, a little more comfortable with uncertainty, because certainly the last 18 months has been anything but comfortable or predictable.
Yeah, no, it definitely hasn't, right? And so Dan, just so we can get some sort of figures here, how many, say, vendors or businesses do you have within the Eastern market?
So we, as a transient market, we have different market days. So we have a Tuesday and a Sunday that are seasonal. They start normally in June and run through October. And those serve about 200 individual vendors. And then our Saturday market, which is year round, again, seasonally, the ebb and flow of the numbers of vendors. But in the dead of winter, when we're in our smallest footprint, it's about 125 vendors. And now this time of year, our busiest farm, we're typically about 275 vendors. And then around the market is another 175 businesses, many of which are food related. So together we serve about 600 small businesses. And the healthier, wealthier, and happier Detroit corresponds to our missions. Health, obviously, to get people to eat better. Wealthier, to try to grow independent small businesses, which is something the market, public markets historically have done worldwide, but in the United States, the health of public markets isn't as what it is in some other countries. But we're proud of the fact that you can hear from virtually 1 out of every 10 family that's been in this part of the world for a few generations a story about someone getting off a boat or a plane and their immigration story to the United States, and their family business empire started by selling something in the Eastern market out of a stall, because that was a low-cost way for people to establish their business. And that's something we try to carry forward to this day. So that's the wealthier part. And then the happier part is that as an urban experience on a Saturday morning in Detroit and even last week with COVID, we had 25 to 30,000 people, maybe down 20% from what it would be in a purely not pandemic era. It is all of Detroit shows up. And so people come together across the lines that sometimes separate us, be it age, race, walk of life, and enjoy each other and great food. And it's wonderful urban chaos at its best. And that's kind of the traditions that we're trying to keep alive through pandemics, and more recently through a surge of investment that is, we've dealt with the bad times really good. Detroit has turned the corner in terms of its revitalization. So the center part of the city is seeing unprecedented levels of investment, and we got to make sure we survive the good times as well as the bad times.
Yeah, no, Dan, I love that. And something that I picked up on there, what you were saying about all the people from Detroit come and they gather and they have great food, great vibes, etc. So it's almost like it's a great community type of feel. And
very much so.
So could you just explain to anybody that's, say, listening or watching today, what makes Eastern Market different to just your average supermarket?
Well, you don't get, it's not, you don't wake up in the morning and gather your kids and their kids and get a 3-generation trip to your grocery store. And so, it's the rich traditions that families bring with them. Their dad started bringing them when they were 7, or their mom started bringing them when they were 10, and now they're bringing their grandkids when they're 7 and 10 years old. So the stories themselves, just being here for 130 years, but it's the rich flavors of Detroit, the aroma of Burt's Marketplace grilling ribs across the street. It's Robert Bradley, an acclaimed blues singer who's blind, belting out a performance yesterday for the first time since the pandemic set in, I might add, or last weekend. it's street performers of quality and variety that are world class. It's also over the last 7 years, we developed with partners 1X Run, one of the world's premier mural festivals. And so the sites of Eastern Market are not just the beautiful sheds, the 5 buildings, but also the neighborhood where you can see world-class art and engage on a store-by-store basis with some wonderful, diverse product, as well as the public market itself with its 600 plus vendors.
Yeah, and Dan, that's beautiful to hear that. Like you say, people gather their families, their loved ones, to go and visit the Easter market, and it is a day out for them. And also, what I picked up on is that you say, oh, this is a generational thing, so people can share memories of, say, when they used to go to the Easter market when they were younger, and then their parents, obviously, when they were younger, and their grandparents, etc. Because this leads me on to my next question, because obviously since 1841, Eastern Market has grown significantly. So what does the next, say, decade look like to you, Dan, for the Eastern Market?
Well, I participate in something called the World Union of Wholesale Markets, and there's very few American members. There's 400 members globally, and I think there's 4 American members. Most of the large, we also have a wholesale market function that we haven't talked about, that between midnight and 5 a.m., 40 Michigan, Ohio, Ontario growers come and connect with independent grocers and others, and they're larger volume. They're selling, pallets or case lots to independent grocers. So that market used to be dominant. It used to be a monopolist position. We used to be the one place where people would get wholesale vegetables in Southeast Michigan, but now with every large grocer having its independent warehouse with product coming from around the world, not just from local farms, our market share has plummeted. And so we do know that there's a lot of interest in eating local and eating fresher. And so we're extending seasons both by going indoors, but also by small batch freezing of Michigan crops so people can actually eat local year round. And we've been at the forefront of trying to build out a smaller scale infrastructure to serve Michigan farmers, Ohio farmers, Ontario farmers, to be able to bring those technologies, whether it's dehydration or fermentation or freezing, to keep local food available 12 months a year in different formats. And so we want to grow the market district. We have a significant amount of food processing, particularly meat processing, that goes on. Many of those businesses are landlocked. So we just got done rezoning 70 acres to expand the market into areas adjacent to the market, which, because of Detroit's unique place, we're about the only place in the world this close to a city center where we can imagine that kind of land use, because the densities in other cities have moved that wholesale food function further to the suburbs. And in Detroit's case, there's been, the cycle of disinvestment that has just only recently ended, put a lot of vacant land nearby. And so we're trying to stake out a bit of it to keep those jobs in the heart of the city. And so we hope to save about 2,000 jobs and add about 2,000 new jobs as we in the next 10 to 20 years to double the size of the market in terms of the neighborhood. Market itself, as more people live close by, we can imagine moving from, one full-time year-round market day and 2 seasonal market days to maybe 2 or 3 year-round market days as Detroit regains residential density in the heart of the city.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing, Dan, because like you say, how you guys are expanding as well. And it just seems to me like the Eastern Market is the heart of Detroit, because everybody obviously comes there to gather and to eat and things like that. But also you're creating jobs, etc., which is fantastic. So for anybody that's, say, listening today or they're watching this, what can they do to help, and what sort of actionable steps can they do to help get involved in this, Dan?
Yeah, well, we're always looking for supporters. And if you check out our website at www.easternmarket.org, we are a 501c3, which in the United States, that means your contributions to us are fully tax deductible for U.S. residents. I'm not sure what that means to the rest of the world's residents, but we do appreciate financial support. We also, are always looking for partners that have new ideas or innovations that they want to bring to the food space, particularly regional scaled food systems. And so if you've got a breakthrough idea and looking for a home for it, we'd love to talk to you. And if you're ever in the neighborhood and want to check out Eastern Market, we do there are a number of tour packages that people can provide. Again, you can find those on our website at www.eastermarket.org. And again, on a warm Saturday morning, there's no better urban experience that I've come across. And I have a 40-year career in city center management that's taken me to most major cities across the world. There are many outside the United States that have that Saturday morning experience, but not so many within North America. And you wouldn't want to miss it if you're in the neighborhood.
Yeah, Dan, I just want to wrap this up, Dan, by saying thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, and I'm sure everybody that's listening to this would love to get involved and be a part of the Easter Market. So for you that's listening here today, if you've enjoyed this episode, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that will show the algorithms that this is an important topic, so more people can learn more about creating a greater Detroit. So Dan, thank you for being here. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Ryan. Back to you the same.